What's up, folks? Welcome back to my channel. Today you're gonna learn how to set up Terraform with an AWS account. Now there are some prerequisites that we need to do before we can start actually using Terraform on the AWS account, so let's go. Before we can actually start working with Terraform, we need to do some preparations on the AWS account. Now, if you might have seen my previous video, I've created a new AWS free tier account especially for this channel. So let's do some preparations on the AWS account. I'll start by creating a new user, especially for Terraform. I'm not going to create the Terraform resources with my user. Okay, so let's go. I'll go into IAM users. Obviously, by the way, I'm not connected as the root user. I've created an additional admin user, which I'm using now. I click on right side add user and I will name it Terraform, so I will know how to identify it. And this user won't need any console access, so I will just give him programmatic access, i.e. CLI and API access. So the Terraform user won't be able to log in via the AWS console. Okay, next up are the permissions. Basically, the Terraform user need S3 and DynamoDB start working, and then any additional permissions that for any additional resource that you might want to set up using Terraform, you will also need it. I will give it an administrator access only because this user and these resources will be deleted later on. So I will just give him an administrator access. And I will give the user a tag, Terraform user, true, create user. Now, this is the most important part when creating the Terraform user. Terraform needs the access key and the secret access key in order to talk with the AWS API and actually create the resources. So I will download these keys and save it for safekeeping. Okay, now that I have my Terraform user, I want to create an S3 bucket. The S3 bucket is gonna actually store my Terraform state file. The state file actually, as you can see in the Terraform documentation, stores the state of our resources and infrastructure. Okay, so let's go into S3 and create our S3 bucket in order to store the Terraform state file. I'm gonna hit create bucket. I'm gonna call it Elad's Cloud Terraform. I'm working in Ireland, so EU West 1. The bucket will be private. I don't need versioning. I'm just gonna add a tag and I'm gonna call it Terraform state true. I don't need encryption and create bucket. Okay, now inside my newly formed bucket, I'm gonna create a folder and I'm gonna call it Terraform. The last thing that we need to do is actually download the AWS CLI. So just Google AWS CLI and download it for your relevant OS. After downloading it, just next and install it, and let's go and configure it. Now remember those AWS access keys that we've downloaded earlier. Now is the time to put them into good use. So I'll type AWS configure. Now it's gonna ask me for my access key and my secret access key. Now it's gonna ask me for my region name. You can just leave this blank. And also for the output default format, you can also leave this blank. And that's it, our AWS is configured. To verify that it is indeed configured, I will type AWS S3LS. And indeed, I'm seeing the S3 bucket that I've just created 2 minutes ago. Okay, first step is to actually download Terraform. So I'm using Windows 64 bits and I've downloaded Terraform. I created a special folder that is called Terraform and I've downloaded the installer to that folder. Now let's unzip it and I will put it in my path. So I've extracted the Terraform executable into the folder I've created. I want to put this folder in my path. So how we're doing it in Windows, I'm going to copy the folder, go and search for env, go inside the environment variables. I'm going to put it as my system environment variables inside the path. So edit, new, paste, boom. Okay. Before we can actually start using Terraform, we need to tell him or direct it to actually store the state file on the S3 bucket that we've created. In order to do that, we'll create a new backend file and a backend configuration that will direct it to that specific S3 bucket and folder. Okay, then I'll jump in my VS Code and I'll create another folder which will be called Backend, and inside this folder I'll create a new file that's called backend.tf, and I will paste the content of what I've just copied, but I'll have to make some changes. The bucket name, I'll jump in right back into my S3 and I can copy the name of my bucket onto this file, right? Then I need to set the path to the file. So if you remember, I've created a folder that is called Terraform, and I'm working actually in EU West 1, and I will save this file real fast. Now we want to set up the actual AWS provider for Terraform. So I googled again AWS provider Terraform. I went into the example usage and I will copy the first block. Okay, I'm back in my VS Code and now I will create another folder here and it will be called main. And inside the main folder, I'll create a new file that will be called main.tf and I will paste the content of what I've just copied. Now, the only thing I want to change here is the region I'm working at. So I'm going to change it to EU West 1. Now, let's check if it's working. I load up a terminal where I'm at currently and I'll switch it from PowerShell to CMD and I'll hit Terraform init. So actually I had to restart my VS Code in order to the changes to take effect, but I've restarted the VS Code and I've hit Terraform init, and as you can see my Terraform is successfully initialized. So we can start actually working with the Terraform and it is connected to my AWS free tier account. I'll hit again AWS S3 LS, and yes, the Terraform is indeed directed to this account and I can start working on it right now if I want. So if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe buttons. I have some great videos coming up, some great ideas, and I'll see you guys on the next one. So bye for now.